Imagine discovering that the face you've seen in churches, museums, and on the big screen isn't the real Jesus Christ. What if the iconic image we all know is just an illusion? And what if there's an ancient manuscript hidden for centuries that has the power to not only change that image, but also challenge everything you thought you knew about your faith? Get ready to dive into a world of mystery and revelation that could reshape Christianity forever. This isn't about rewriting history for shock value. It's about peeling back the layers of myth and misconception to uncover profound truths with implications for faith, identity, and justice today. The Ethiopian Bible, one of the oldest and most complete biblical texts known to humankind, offers bold, unvarnished wisdom, books banned in other Christian traditions, messages that empower the oppressed, and a legacy untainted by Western imperialism. Together, we'll explore the transformative journey of uncovering the real face of Jesus and the unparalleled power of the Ethiopian Bible. These revelations challenge what we think we know about history, faith, and representation, while offering hope and truth to a world still grappling with issues of race and justice. If you're eager to explore the untold stories of our past alongside us, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. This way, you'll be the first to know about our upcoming history deep dives. Don't keep the knowledge to yourself. Share this video with those you know, who are ready to question and learn beyond the conventional narratives. Together, let's embark on a journey to uncover and disseminate the real history. To understand the roots of this untold story, we must first place Jesus in his historical and geographical context. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, a small town in 1st century Roman Judea, a region at the crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe. This location is far from incidental. It situates Jesus in a melting pot of cultures, ethnicities, and histories. The ancient world wasn't neatly divided by the racial categories we recognize today. Instead, it was a dynamic tapestry of peoples moving across regions due to trade, migration, and conquest. In this context, understanding Jesus' identity requires us to think beyond modern racial constructs and acknowledge the diversity of his world. When we delve deeper into the Gospels, we uncover striking connections between Jesus and Africa. Take, for example, the story of the Holy Family's flight to Egypt. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Mary, Joseph, and the infant Jesus fled to Egypt to escape King Herod's murderous decree. This wasn't a brief layover. It's believed that Jesus' family lived in Egypt for several formative years, blending into the local, predominantly African population. Egypt wasn't just a random hideout for the Holy Family. It had long been a place of refuge for Jewish communities. From the time of the patriarchs to the Babylonian exile, Africa played a vital role in the spiritual and historical narrative of the Jewish people. For Jesus, these early years in Egypt weren't merely about survival. They were formative in shaping his understanding of the world, exposing him to African culture, traditions, and communities. This African chapter in Jesus' life is more than a historical footnote. It symbolizes Africa's central role in the story of salvation, a role often overlooked in traditional narratives. The continent that sheltered Israel during times of famine and hardship also provided sanctuary for the Messiah. This African connection isn't about token representation. It's a profound truth woven into the fabric of Jesus' life and ministry. Now, let's shift our focus to how Jesus has been depicted throughout history. In the earliest centuries of Christianity, Jesus' image reflected the diverse communities that embraced his teachings. Early Christian art in Egypt, Ethiopia, and other parts of Africa portrayed Jesus with dark skin, woolly hair, and features that resonate with African identity. These depictions weren't accidental. They reflected the understanding of Jesus' heritage held by some of the oldest Christian communities in the world. Contrast this with the image of Jesus that dominates much of Western Christianity today, a fair-skinned, blue-eyed figure that owes more to Renaissance aesthetics than historical accuracy. The transformation of Jesus' image from a man rooted in the Middle Eastern and African context to a European icon is a story of power, politics, and cultural dominance, a story we'll unravel as we move forward. Why is it so important to reclaim this forgotten narrative? For people of African descent, the image of a black Jesus isn't just about historical accuracy. It's a profound act of reclaiming identity and dignity within a faith that has often been weaponized to marginalize them. It challenges the narrative that whiteness is closer to godliness and affirms that African features, culture, and heritage are integral to the story of salvation. But this isn't just about representation for one group. For all of us, embracing the African roots of Jesus invites us to confront our biases, expand our understanding of history, and reimagine a faith that truly reflects the diversity of human experience. It's a call to see Jesus not as a figure confined by cultural stereotypes, but as someone who transcends them, a savior for all people. As we journey further into this untold story, we'll explore the evidence that supports Jesus' African heritage, uncover how his image was whitewashed over centuries, and delve into the profound implications of reclaiming this narrative for our modern world. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a transformative exploration of faith, identity, and justice. Stay with me as we peel back the layers of history to uncover the real story of Jesus, a story that has been waiting, for centuries, to be told. The evidence of Jesus' African heritage lies not just in the pages of Scripture, but in the very geography and culture of the world he inhabited. To understand this, we must look closer at the cultural crossroads of first-century Judea, where Jesus' life unfolded. This land, nestled between Africa, Asia, and Europe, was a vibrant intersection of civilizations where ethnic diversity was not merely a possibility but a reality. Bethlehem and Nazareth, the towns where Jesus was born and raised, were part of Roman-occupied Judea, a region shaped by trade, migration, and conquest. The people of this area were a mosaic of ethnicities, with complex ancestries reflected in their physical features, traditions, and customs. This was not a homogeneous society, but one where identities interwove through shared experiences. One compelling piece of evidence for Jesus' African connection is his family's flight to Egypt, as described in the Gospel of Matthew. Fleeing King Herod's wrath, Mary, Joseph, and the infant Jesus sought refuge in Egypt, a land that had long been a sanctuary for Jewish exiles. The fact that the Holy Family could flee to Egypt and integrate into its society suggests they were not so visually distinct from the local population. In a region where darker skin tones were common, this ability to blend in underscores their connection to Africa's rich cultural and ethnic diversity. The time Jesus spent in Egypt was not merely a moment of survival but a formative experience. Picture the young Jesus walking through the streets of Egyptian cities, hearing its languages, and absorbing its traditions. These early years exposed him to a diversity of culture and belief that would influence his teachings and ministry. His experiences were not limited to one culture but encompassed a breadth of perspectives that reflected the interconnectedness of Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. The African connection is further evidenced in the Gospel accounts of Simon of Cyrene, the man compelled to carry Jesus' cross. Cyrene, located in what is now Libya, was a North African city with a significant Jewish population. Simon's presence in Jerusalem and his pivotal role in the Passion narrative highlight the historical ties between African and Jewish communities. Africans were not peripheral to the story of Christianity. They were integral participants, shaping its early moments and bearing witness to its most profound events. Early Christian art provides additional clues to Jesus' heritage. In regions like Egypt and Ethiopia, some of the oldest surviving depictions of Jesus show him with dark skin, woolly hair, and features distinctly aligned with African identity. These were not accidental choices. They reflected how early Christians, particularly in Africa, understood Jesus' appearance. The Coptic Christians of Egypt have long preserved traditions of portraying Jesus with features that mirror their own, not as an act of projection but as a reflection of their belief in his heritage. The Ethiopian Church, one of the oldest Christian traditions in the world, offers another testament to this connection. Christianity arrived in Ethiopia in the 4th century, and Ethiopian iconography has consistently depicted Jesus with African features. This tradition has persisted for nearly 2 millennia, unaltered by the European influences that would later reshape Christianity elsewhere. These depictions are not modern reinterpretations. They are deeply rooted in how these communities have understood Jesus since the earliest days of their faith. Descriptions of Jesus in early Christian texts, though scarce, also lend themselves to this perspective. The book of Revelation describes Jesus with hair, like wool, and feet, like bronze glowing in a furnace. While these descriptions are symbolic, they align more closely with African and Middle Eastern features than with the European representations that came to dominate Renaissance art. The imagery evokes a figure deeply connected to the earth and humanity, one whose physical presence reflected the diversity of his surroundings. Archaeological findings further challenge the monolithic portrayals of Jesus that emerged in later centuries. Skeletal remains, ancient artifacts, and historical records reveal a Judean population characterized by a wide range of physical traits, shaped by centuries of migration and cultural exchange. This diversity underscores the likelihood that Jesus, as a man of his time and place, would have embodied the rich ethnic complexity of his homeland. Beyond physical appearance, Jesus' African heritage is reflected in the themes and values of his teachings. His emphasis on community, the dignity of the marginalized, and the interconnectedness of all people resonates deeply with African spiritual traditions. These traditions often prioritize communal harmony and the recognition of humanity's shared essence, echoing the core principles of Jesus' message. It is as though the cultural influences of Africa found expression in his universal teachings. Recognizing Jesus' African heritage enriches our understanding of his identity and challenges us to see him as a figure who transcended the boundaries of his time. The image of a Black Jesus is not about exclusivity or erasure but about inclusivity, acknowledging the fullness of his humanity and the multicultural roots of the Christian faith. This perspective invites a deeper appreciation of Jesus' role as a bridge between diverse peoples and a unifying figure whose message speaks to all. The journey of understanding Jesus' African heritage is inseparable from the story of how his image was reshaped over centuries. This transformation did not happen by chance. It was the result of deliberate choices made by those in positions of power, seeking to align the image of Jesus with their own cultural and political agendas. The portrayal of Jesus as a European figure emerged gradually, reflecting the priorities of empires, rulers, and institutions rather than the historical and geographical realities of his life. In the earliest days of Christianity, there was no consistent depiction of Jesus. Early Christian communities focused more on symbols, such as the fish or the shepherd, to represent Christ. This symbolic approach was partly influenced by Jewish traditions that prohibited graven images and partly by the desire to emphasize Jesus' teachings and resurrection over his physical form. For these communities, the exact appearance of Jesus was less important than the message he carried. The turning point came with the conversion of Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. Constantine's embrace of Christianity marked its transformation from a persecuted minority faith to the official religion of the Roman Empire. This new status brought with it profound changes, not only in theology but also in how Jesus was visually represented. As Christianity became intertwined with imperial power, there was a growing desire to make Jesus relatable to the Roman elite. Artists began to draw on Greco-Roman aesthetics, portraying Jesus with features that aligned with their ideals of beauty and divinity: fair skin, straight hair, and a commanding presence. This Romanization of Jesus served a dual purpose. It made the faith more palatable to a predominantly European audience and legitimized the political authority of Christian rulers. By depicting Jesus as someone who resembled the ruling classes, the Church reinforced its alignment with imperial power. This trend continued as Christianity spread further into Europe during the Middle Ages, with depictions of Jesus becoming increasingly Europeanized. The medieval period saw the consolidation of this image through religious art commissioned by European monarchs and the Church. In these works, Jesus was often depicted as a figure of European nobility, with features that mirrored those of the patrons or the artists themselves. These depictions were not necessarily acts of conscious erasure but reflected the cultural norms and assumptions of the time. For the people creating and viewing these images, a Jesus who looked like them felt more immediate and accessible. The Renaissance brought about another significant shift. Artists such as Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo created iconic depictions of Jesus that remain influential to this day. While their works brought new levels of realism and emotional depth, they also further entrenched the image of a white, European Christ. These masterpieces were celebrated not just for their artistic merit but also for their ability to project an idealized version of divinity that resonated with European audiences. In many ways, these images became the standard against which all others were measured, overshadowing the more historically grounded depictions from earlier traditions. The age of European exploration and colonization amplified the reach of this image. As European powers expanded their influence across the globe, they brought with them their version of Christianity, complete with a white Jesus. This depiction became a tool of colonization, used to assert the superiority of European culture and justify the subjugation of non-European peoples. Missionaries played a key role in this process, presenting a Europeanized Jesus as the universal savior while erasing or marginalizing local expressions of Christianity. The impact of this whitewashed Jesus was particularly devastating in the context of the transatlantic slave trade. Slave owners and pro-slavery theologians used the image of a white Christ to justify the enslavement of African people, portraying whiteness as closer to godliness and blackness as a mark of inferiority. This distorted theology became a cornerstone of the racial hierarchies that shaped the Americas and continues to influence perceptions of race and faith today. Even after the abolition of slavery, the image of a white Jesus persisted as a symbol of racial and cultural dominance. In the United States, for example, depictions of a white Christ were used to reinforce segregation and the idea of white superiority. This version of Jesus became so deeply ingrained in Western Christianity that it was rarely questioned, even as it perpetuated harmful stereotypes and excluded non-European communities from fully seeing themselves reflected in their faith. Theological interpretations also played a role in cementing this image. European and American theologians often read their own cultural biases into the Bible, portraying Jesus in ways that aligned with their worldview. This Eurocentric lens shaped not only how Jesus was depicted but also how his teachings were understood, often emphasizing themes of order and hierarchy over justice and liberation. Despite these distortions, the roots of a more diverse and inclusive understanding of Jesus have never been completely erased. In the 20th century, movements such as the Harlem Renaissance, the Civil Rights Movement, and liberation theology began to challenge the dominant narratives. Black theologians and artists reclaimed the image of a black Jesus as a source of empowerment and a reminder of his solidarity with the oppressed. These efforts sparked a broader conversation about representation, justice, and the true identity of Jesus. The erasure of Jesus' African heritage was not merely an artistic or cultural choice. It was a deeply political act with far-reaching consequences. By aligning Jesus with whiteness, powerful institutions used his image to reinforce systems of oppression and exclusion. Reclaiming the historical and cultural truth of Jesus' identity is not just about correcting historical inaccuracies. It is about confronting the legacies of these systems and creating a more just and inclusive vision of faith. The story of Jesus, as reshaped through centuries of whitewashing, holds a mirror to the way history has been written and rewritten by those in power. However, this transformation did not occur in a vacuum. It was deeply intertwined with the socio-political currents of the time, serving the agendas of empires and institutions. By examining this process, we uncover not only the erasure of Jesus' African heritage, but also the broader patterns of domination and exclusion that had shaped our world. The intertwining of Christianity with the Roman Empire marked a pivotal moment in this transformation. When Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion of the empire, the faith became a tool of statecraft. To solidify this union, the image of Jesus was adapted to reflect the values and aesthetics of the empire. Roman artistic traditions emphasized symmetry, order, and a certain ideal of beauty that aligned with their concept of divinity. By depicting Jesus with these characteristics, the Church aligned his image with imperial authority, making him a symbol of unity and power. This alignment with imperial ideals continued to evolve as Christianity spread across Europe. In medieval art, Jesus was often depicted as a majestic, king-like figure, with golden halos and robes befitting a ruler. These images served not only to inspire devotion but also to legitimize the authority of monarchs who claimed to rule by divine right. In this context, the whiteness of Jesus was not incidental. It was a reflection of the European worldview that equated divinity with their own cultural identity. The Renaissance amplified this trend, with its focus on humanism and the rediscovery of Greco-Roman ideals. Artists like Michelangelo and Raphael drew inspiration from classical art, creating images of Jesus that emphasized physical perfection according to European standards. These depictions, celebrated for their beauty and craftsmanship, became the definitive image of Christ for much of the Western world. Nonetheless, they also reinforced the notion that Jesus belonged to European culture, further marginalizing the diverse communities that had embraced Christianity from its earliest days. The spread of European colonialism took this image to every corner of the globe. Missionaries, often working hand in hand with colonial powers, presented Christianity as a package deal, a faith intertwined with European culture, values, and aesthetics. In this context, the image of a white Jesus became a symbol of cultural superiority, used to justify the colonization and conversion of non-European peoples. This process erased local expressions of Christianity and imposed a Eurocentric worldview that devalued the cultures and identities of colonized peoples. Nowhere was this more apparent than in the Americas during the era of slavery. The image of a white Jesus was used to reinforce the ideology of white supremacy, portraying blackness as incompatible with divinity and salvation. Slave owners co-opted Christianity to justify the dehumanization of African people, using distorted interpretations of Scripture to argue that slavery was part of God's plan. The whiteness of Jesus became a powerful tool in maintaining these systems of oppression, embedding racial hierarchies into the fabric of the faith. Even after the abolition of slavery, the legacy of this distorted theology persisted. In the Jim Crow era, white churches often clung to the image of a white Jesus as a way to uphold segregation and racial inequality. This version of Jesus was not just a religious figure, but a cultural icon that reinforced the status quo. For many people of color, this created a painful disconnect between their faith and their lived experiences, making it difficult to see themselves fully represented in the story of salvation. Nevertheless, amid this history of exclusion and erasure, there have always been voices pushing back. The African American Church, for example, has long been a space of resistance and reclamation. Through gospel music, sermons, and art, Black Christians have reimagined Jesus in their own image, emphasizing his solidarity with the oppressed. This reclaiming of Jesus as a figure of liberation has been a powerful counter-narrative, challenging the dominant image of a white Christ and offering a vision of faith rooted in justice and equality. The liberation theology movement further expanded this vision, connecting the story of Jesus to struggles for freedom and human dignity around the world. In Latin America, Africa, and beyond, theologians emphasize the ways in which Jesus' teachings resonate with the experiences of marginalized and oppressed communities. This perspective reframes the gospel as a message of empowerment, calling for systemic change rather than passive acceptance of injustice. Reclaiming the image of a Black Jesus is not just about representation, it is about recentering the voices and experiences that have been pushed to the margins. By acknowledging Jesus' African heritage, we open the door to a more inclusive and authentic understanding of Christianity, one that celebrates its diverse roots and challenges the forces of exclusion that have shaped its history. This process also forces us to confront the ways in which power and privilege have influenced the interpretation of faith. It invites us to ask difficult questions about who has been excluded from the story of Christianity and why. These questions are not just academic. They have real implications for how we live out our faith today, shaping our understanding of community, justice, and the image of God. The story of Jesus as a man deeply connected to Africa is not a new narrative. It is a story that has been waiting to be reclaimed. It challenges us to move beyond the simplified, Eurocentric portrayals that have dominated for so long and to embrace a more complex, nuanced vision of who Jesus was. This is not about rewriting history. It is about recovering a truth that has been buried for centuries, a truth that has the power to transform how we see ourselves and each other. The reclamation of Jesus' African heritage is not only about addressing historical inaccuracies, but also about grappling with the profound implications of his identity in today's world. The image of a black Jesus stands as a powerful symbol, challenging entrenched systems of racial inequality, and offering a more inclusive vision of faith. This reframing is deeply relevant in a world still wrestling with the legacies of colonialism, slavery, and systemic racism. For many people of African descent, rediscovering Jesus' African roots provides a profound sense of representation and belonging. For centuries, the dominant portrayal of Jesus as a white, European figure has perpetuated the idea that divinity and whiteness are intrinsically linked. This has contributed to a broader societal narrative that devalues blackness, embedding a sense of inferiority in the minds of generations. The image of a black Jesus disrupts this narrative, affirming that African features, cultures, and histories are not just valid but sacred. The significance of this representation extends beyond aesthetics or identity politics. It resonates on a deeply spiritual level, offering a vision of Jesus as someone who understands and embodies the struggles of marginalized communities. For African Americans and other people of African descent, this reframing of Jesus provides a reminder that their experiences are not peripheral to the Christian story, they are central to it. This understanding can be profoundly healing, countering centuries of exclusion and offering a renewed sense of dignity and hope. The implications of this perspective are equally transformative for white Christians. Acknowledging Jesus' African heritage challenges the Eurocentric lens through which much of Christianity has been interpreted. It invites believers to confront their own assumptions about race, culture, and divinity, opening the door to a more expansive and inclusive understanding of faith. This process can be uncomfortable, as it requires letting go of deeply ingrained biases and embracing a vision of Christianity that centers the voices and experiences of those historically marginalized. The image of a black Jesus also carries significant implications for the broader fight against systemic racism. Throughout history, religious imagery has been used to reinforce racial hierarchies and justify oppression. Reclaiming the African identity of Jesus offers a powerful counter-narrative, challenging these systems at their core. It asserts that blackness is not a deviation from the divine image, but a reflection of it, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of black lives. This reframing of Jesus' identity also intersects with movements for racial justice in meaningful ways. In the context of the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, the story of a black Jesus serves as a theological affirmation of the struggle for equality and justice. It connects the fight against racism to the teachings and example of Christ, emphasizing his solidarity with the oppressed and his call to challenge unjust systems. This perspective transforms the gospel from a message of passive acceptance into a call to action, urging believers to actively work toward a more just and equitable world. In addition to its impact on racial justice, the recognition of Jesus' African heritage has profound theological implications. It calls for a re-examination of core Christian doctrines, such as the Incarnation, through a more inclusive lens. The idea of God becoming human takes on new depth when we consider that this humanity was embodied in a person deeply connected to Africa. It emphasizes the universal nature of Christ's mission while grounding it in the lived experiences of marginalized communities. This perspective also challenges traditional associations of whiteness with purity, divinity, and moral authority. By presenting Jesus as a figure of African heritage, it disrupts these associations and affirms the sacredness of all racial and cultural identities. It calls believers to a deeper understanding of what it means to be made in the image of God, celebrating the diversity of humanity as a reflection of the divine. The cultural implications of this shift extend beyond theology and into the realms of education, media, and representation. For too long, religious education materials and popular media have perpetuated a narrow, Eurocentric vision of Christianity. Reclaiming the image of a black Jesus offers an opportunity to challenge these norms, creating spaces for more diverse and historically accurate representations of faith. This shift has the potential to transform how Christianity is taught, practiced, and understood, fostering a more inclusive and equitable vision of the faith. The recognition of Jesus' African heritage also opens up new possibilities for interfaith dialogue and cultural exchange. By acknowledging the shared African and Middle Eastern roots of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, it highlights the interconnectedness of these traditions and creates opportunities for mutual understanding and collaboration. This perspective emphasizes the common humanity that underpins these faiths, offering a powerful counter to the divisive narratives that have often shaped their interactions. However, the process of reclaiming Jesus' African heritage is not without its challenges. For many, the image of a white Jesus is deeply ingrained, representing not only their faith but also their cultural identity. Confronting this legacy requires a willingness to engage in difficult conversations and to challenge long-held assumptions. It demands a commitment to truth and a recognition of the ways in which historical distortions have shaped our understanding of faith and identity. Despite these challenges, the potential benefits of this reframing are profound. By embracing the full complexity of Jesus' identity, we can create a vision of Christianity that is more inclusive, authentic, and transformative. It is a vision that celebrates diversity, affirms the dignity of all people, and calls believers to work for justice and reconciliation in their communities and beyond. The story of Jesus, when understood in its full cultural and historical context, extends far beyond the boundaries of race and geography. It is a story that speaks to the shared humanity of all people, but one that has often been co-opted to exclude rather than unite. The recognition of Jesus' African heritage invites us to see his life and teachings through a broader lens, one that prioritizes justice, inclusivity, and the interconnectedness of all human experiences. This interconnectedness is evident in the way Jesus' teachings resonate across cultural boundaries. His parables and sermons emphasize themes of community, compassion, and the inherent worth of every individual, values deeply rooted in African spiritual traditions. In many ways, the ethos of Jesus' message aligns with the African concept of Ubuntu, which emphasizes the idea that I am because we are. This worldview, which prioritizes communal harmony and collective well-being, mirrors the teachings of a man who sought to break down barriers and bring people together. Understanding Jesus within this framework challenges the individualistic interpretations of Christianity that have often dominated Western theology. It shifts the focus from personal salvation to a more communal vision of faith, one that calls for solidarity with the oppressed and a commitment to systemic change. This perspective not only enriches our understanding of Jesus' message, but also reclaims its radical call to justice and equality. The African roots of Jesus also remind us of the multicultural nature of early Christianity. The faith that emerged in the decades after Jesus' death was not a monolithic movement, but a dynamic, diverse community that spanned continents and cultures. From the Ethiopian eunuch baptized by Philip to the North African theologians who shaped early Christian thought, Africa has played a central role in the development of the faith. This history, often overshadowed by Eurocentric narratives, underscores the importance of reclaiming the African heritage of Jesus and the early Church. One of the most striking examples of this heritage is found in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the oldest Christian communities in the world. Christianity was introduced to Ethiopia in the 4th century, and the faith has flourished there ever since. Ethiopian traditions offer a rich tapestry of beliefs, practices, and artistic expressions that reflect a deep connection to the life and teachings of Jesus. From the vibrant iconography depicting a black Christ to the centuries-old liturgies sung in Gizi, the Ethiopian Church stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of Christianity's African roots. This legacy is not confined to Ethiopia. Across the African continent, Christianity has taken on diverse forms, blending with local traditions and creating expressions of faith that are both deeply rooted in history and uniquely African. These traditions challenge the notion that Christianity is a Western religion and highlight its adaptability and universality. They also provide a powerful counter-narrative to the colonial interpretations of Christianity that sought to erase African identities and cultures. The image of a black Jesus is a central part of this counter-narrative. It challenges the idea that divinity must conform to European standards and affirms the sacredness of African identities. This affirmation is particularly important in a world where racial inequality remains pervasive. The image of a black Jesus stands as a powerful symbol of resistance and empowerment, offering hope and inspiration to those who have been marginalized and oppressed. For many, this image also serves as a reminder of Jesus' solidarity with the marginalized. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus consistently aligns himself with those on the margins of society, the poor, the sick, the outcasts. His teachings emphasize the inherent worth of every individual, regardless of their social or economic status. In this light, the image of a black Jesus becomes not just a representation of historical truth but also a reflection of the values he embodied: justice, compassion, and the dignity of all people. The reclamation of Jesus' African heritage is not about erasing other cultural interpretations of his life and teachings. Instead, it is about recovering a truth that has been obscured by centuries of whitewashing and exclusion. It is a call to expand our understanding of who Jesus was and what he represents, embracing the diversity of human experience as a reflection of the divine. This perspective challenges us to move beyond the limitations of cultural stereotypes and to see Jesus as a figure who transcends boundaries, bringing people together in a shared vision of love and justice. In reclaiming this truth, we also confront the ways in which power and privilege have shaped the story of Jesus. The whitewashing of his image was not just an artistic choice but a deliberate act of erasure that served the interests of empires and institutions. By aligning Jesus with whiteness, these forces sought to legitimize systems of oppression and exclude those who did not fit their narrow vision of faith. Acknowledging this history is an essential step toward healing and reconciliation, both within the church and in society at large. The process of reclaiming Jesus' African heritage also invites us to reimagine the future of Christianity. It calls for a faith that is inclusive and equitable, one that honors its diverse roots and prioritizes the voices and experiences of those who have been historically marginalized. This vision is not just about representation, it is about creating a faith that is true to its origins and relevant to the challenges of the modern world. The journey toward this vision requires humility, courage, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It demands that we listen to the stories and perspectives that have been silenced, and that we commit ourselves to the work of justice and inclusion. This journey is not an easy one, but it is a necessary one, a journey that leads us closer to the heart of the gospel and the radical love it represents. The reclamation of Jesus' African heritage has profound implications for the way we approach not only faith but also our understanding of history, identity, and justice. This process challenges deeply entrenched narratives that have shaped Western Christianity and, by extension, global culture for centuries. It is not just a correction of historical inaccuracies, but a call to reimagine the foundational stories that define our collective humanity. When we think of Jesus as a figure deeply connected to Africa, it transforms the way we understand the Christian story. No longer is it confined to the borders of the Roman Empire or the cultural frameworks of Europe. Instead, it becomes a narrative that is inherently global, diverse, and inclusive. This perspective underscores the universal relevance of Jesus' life and teachings, while also highlighting the specific ways in which his identity resonates with marginalized and oppressed communities. This resonance is particularly powerful in the context of modern racial justice movements. The image of a black Jesus is not just a historical truth, it is a potent symbol of solidarity with those who have been excluded, dehumanized, and oppressed. In a world where systemic racism continues to shape the lives of millions, this image offers a vision of hope and empowerment. It asserts that blackness is not a deviation from divinity but a reflection of it, affirming the inherent dignity and worth of all people. The importance of this representation cannot be overstated. For centuries, the dominance of a white, European depiction of Jesus has reinforced a narrative that centers whiteness and marginalizes other identities. This has had profound psychological and spiritual consequences, particularly for people of African descent. The erasure of Jesus' African heritage has contributed to a sense of alienation within a faith that should be a source of belonging and empowerment. Reclaiming this heritage is an act of spiritual and cultural healing, one that affirms the full humanity of those who have been excluded from the dominant narrative. This reclamation also has significant theological implications. It invites us to reconsider the meaning of the incarnation, God becoming human in a specific time, place, and cultural context. When we recognize Jesus' African connections, we see the incarnation not as an abstract theological concept but as a profound affirmation of humanity in all its diversity. It reminds us that God chose to enter the world not in the halls of power but among the marginalized, embracing a heritage that has often been overlooked or devalued. The recognition of Jesus' African heritage also challenges the ways in which power and privilege have shaped the interpretation of faith. For much of history, theology has been dominated by voices from Europe and North America, often to the exclusion of perspectives from Africa, Asia, and other parts of the world. This Eurocentric lens has not only distorted the image of Jesus, but also limited the ways in which his teachings have been understood and applied. By centering the African roots of Jesus, we open the door to a more inclusive and authentic vision of Christianity. This vision acknowledges the contributions of African theologians, scholars, and communities, whose voices have often been silenced or marginalized. It celebrates the rich diversity of Christian traditions, from the Coptic Church in Egypt to the vibrant Pentecostal movements of West Africa, recognizing these as integral parts of the faith rather than peripheral expressions. This broader perspective also invites us to engage with the intersections of faith, culture, and social justice in new and transformative ways. When we see Jesus as a figure who embodies the struggles and aspirations of marginalized communities, his teachings take on new depth and relevance. The Beatitudes, for example, become not just a list of virtues but a radical manifesto for justice and liberation. The parables of the Good Samaritan and the prodigal son challenge us to rethink our notions of belonging and exclusion, calling us to create a world where everyone is valued and included. The image of a Black Jesus also has profound implications for interfaith and intercultural dialogue. By acknowledging the shared African and Middle Eastern roots of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, we can foster greater understanding and collaboration among these faiths. This perspective highlights the common humanity that underpins these traditions, creating opportunities for dialogue and mutual enrichment. It also challenges the divisive narratives that have often been used to pit these communities against one another, emphasizing instead their shared commitment to justice, compassion, and the sacredness of life. In the realm of education, the recognition of Jesus' African heritage offers a powerful tool for challenging Eurocentric curricula and creating more inclusive narratives. By teaching students about the diverse cultural and historical contexts of Christianity, we can foster a deeper understanding of the faith and its relevance to people of all backgrounds. This shift has the potential to transform not only religious education but also broader discussions of history, identity, and culture. At its core, the reclamation of Jesus' African heritage is a call to confront the legacies of exclusion and erasure that have shaped our world. It is an invitation to build a more inclusive and equitable society, one that honors the diversity of human experience and affirms the dignity of all people. This journey is not without its challenges, but it is a journey worth undertaking, a journey that leads us closer to the heart of the gospel and the radical love it represents. The narrative of Jesus as a figure connected to Africa is more than a historical correction. It's a transformative lens through which we can view our understanding of faith, culture, and identity. For too long, the dominant image of Jesus has served as a reflection of the cultural and political forces that shaped its creation, often distorting the inclusive and universal nature of his message. Reclaiming the African heritage of Jesus is not just about setting the historical record straight. It's about realigning the faith with its foundational values of justice, equity, and love. This reclamation invites us to reflect on the ways in which power has influenced the portrayal of divinity. The whitewashing of Jesus was not simply an artistic trend but a deliberate effort to align Christianity with the cultural and racial norms of those in power. By presenting Jesus as a white, European figure, these portrayals reinforce the idea that whiteness was synonymous with divinity, goodness, and authority. This alignment was deeply political, serving the interests of empires, colonial powers, and ruling elites. The consequences of this distortion have been far-reaching. For centuries, the image of a white Jesus has been used to legitimize systems of oppression, from the enslavement of African people to the colonization of entire continents. It has been a tool of exclusion, used to marginalize those who did not fit the narrow definition of what was considered holy or acceptable. This legacy is evident not only in the history of Western Christianity but also in the broader societal structures that continue to perpetuate inequality and injustice. Reclaiming the African heritage of Jesus challenges these systems at their core. It asserts that divinity cannot be confined to one race, culture, or geographic region. It affirms the sacredness of all people, regardless of their background, and calls for a vision of Christianity that is inclusive, diverse, and equitable. This perspective is not just about representation, it's about reclaiming the radical essence of the gospel, a message that calls for justice, compassion, and the transformation of oppressive systems. This transformation begins with a deeper understanding of the historical and cultural context of Jesus' life. By situating him within the diverse, multicultural world of first-century Judea, we see a figure who was deeply connected to the struggles and aspirations of marginalized communities. His teachings were not abstract or detached. They were rooted in the lived realities of people navigating oppression, displacement, and injustice. This context adds layers of meaning to his message, emphasizing its relevance to the challenges we face today. The African heritage of Jesus also highlights the interconnectedness of the early Christian movement. The Ethiopian Bible is not merely a collection of ancient texts, it is a living document that continues to shape the spiritual, cultural, and even political life of Ethiopia. Its influence extends beyond the borders of Ethiopia, inspiring believers and scholars around the world who seek a deeper understanding of early Christianity and its diverse expressions. Key teachings that empower. The key teachings of the Ethiopian Bible resonate with a profound sense of spiritual empowerment, offering a unique perspective that has been largely excluded from Western traditions. Unlike conventional texts, the Ethiopian canon expands the believer's understanding of divine mysteries and celestial order, guiding them through cosmic battles and moral lessons. At the heart of these teachings are powerful narratives found in books like Enoch, Jubilees, and the Kebra Nagast, all of which provide a robust framework for navigating adversity, seeking justice, and standing firm in faith. These texts offer a comprehensive worldview that encompasses not only earthly affairs but also celestial realms, providing believers with a cosmic perspective on their spiritual journey. The Book of Enoch, a vision of divine justice. Among these texts, the Book of Enoch stands out as a profound and enigmatic scripture. It tells the story of Enoch, a righteous man so close to God that he did not experience death but was taken directly into the heavens. However, the true significance of this text lies in its vivid depiction of the Watchers, angels who descended to earth and violated divine law by engaging with human women. The resulting offspring, the Nephilim, were giants who corrupted and oppressed humanity, representing unchecked power and moral disobedience. This ancient tale serves not only as a record of cosmic rebellion, but also as a cautionary metaphor. The fall of the Watchers is a timeless lesson on the dangers of arrogance, pride, and the seductive lure of power. For Ethiopian Christians, it's a reminder that even beings of divine nature are vulnerable to corruption and that no individual or institution is immune to the consequences of moral failure. This teaching, powerful in its simplicity, reminds the faithful of the inevitability of divine justice and highlights the necessity of humility, calling believers to remain steadfast in their righteousness even when faced with overwhelming power and temptation. The Book of Enoch, with its themes of rebellion, judgment, and redemption, has historically been perceived as dangerous by political and religious authorities. Its challenge to authority, its portrayal of angels falling from grace, and its message of divine retribution against corruption pose a threat to those in power. This is why, for centuries, leaders sought to suppress such teachings, fearing that they would inspire rebellion and encourage the oppressed to rise up against unjust systems. Yet, for those seeking spiritual empowerment, Enoch's message is clear: righteousness will always triumph over corruption, no matter how entrenched the powers of evil may seem. The Book of Enoch also provides a unique cosmological perspective, describing heavenly realms and angelic hierarchies in great detail. This expanded view of the spiritual world offers believers a sense of cosmic context for their earthly struggles. It suggests that the battles they face on earth are reflections of larger, celestial conflicts, imbuing their daily lives with cosmic significance. This perspective can be profoundly empowering, as it elevates the believer's understanding of their role in a grand, divine narrative. Furthermore, the Book of Enoch's prophecies concerning the end times and the final judgment offer hope and reassurance to those facing oppression or injustice. The vivid descriptions of God's ultimate triumph over evil and the restoration of righteousness serve as a powerful source of comfort and motivation. Believers are encouraged to persevere in their faith, knowing that their sufferings are temporary and that divine justice will ultimately prevail. The Book of Jubilees, Divine Order in Time and History. Equally significant is the Book of Jubilees, a scripture that lays out a divine cosmic calendar, revealing the sacred cycles that govern the universe. It emphasizes that history is not a random sequence of events but follows a divinely orchestrated plan. This profound concept of time provides comfort and assurance to believers, teaching that even in moments of chaos, God's master plan remains unshaken. The Book of Jubilees conveys the idea that although evil may dominate temporarily, it is subject to the inevitable intervention of divine justice. For Ethiopian Christians, this assurance offers hope amid adversity, reinforcing the belief that the universe operates according to a higher order which no earthly power can control or disrupt. The Book of Jubilees presents a detailed account of biblical history, from creation to the Exodus, framed within a system of Jubilee cycles. Each Jubilee period, consisting of 49 years, is seen as a complete unit of sacred time. This structured view of history challenges linear, secular understandings of time and progress. It suggests that events unfold not by chance or human will alone, but in accordance with the divine timetable. This perspective on time and history has profound implications for believers facing oppression or injustice. It assures them that their sufferings are not random or meaningless, but part of a larger divine plan. The cyclical nature of Jubilees also implies that periods of hardship will inevitably give way to times of restoration and renewal. This can be a source of great hope and resilience for those enduring difficult circumstances. Moreover, the Book of Jubilees emphasizes the importance of observing sacred laws and rituals in alignment with these divine cycles. This teaching encourages believers to structure their lives in harmony with God's cosmic order, fostering a sense of purpose and divine connection in their daily activities. By aligning themselves with these sacred rhythms, believers can find meaning and direction even in the midst of chaotic or oppressive circumstances. The Book of Jubilees also provides a unique perspective on the covenant between God and Israel, extending this relationship back to creation itself. This expansive view of covenant history offers a sense of divine purpose and chosenness that can be deeply empowering for believers. It suggests that their faith is not merely a personal choice or cultural tradition, but a participation in an ancient, divinely ordained relationship. The Kebra Nagast, a divine heritage. The Kebra Nagast, perhaps the most iconic of these texts, further cements Ethiopia's spiritual heritage. This scripture narrates the legendary journey of the Queen of Sheba to visit King Solomon, resulting in the birth of Menelik, the first emperor of Ethiopia's Solomonic dynasty. It is not merely a historical record but a divine affirmation of Ethiopia's chosen status. Through the Kebra Nagast, the Ethiopian people trace their lineage directly to Solomon and the Ark of the Covenant, claiming a unique relationship with God's divine purpose. For centuries, the Kebra Nagast has been a source of strength and identity for the Ethiopian people in times of foreign invasion, colonization, and internal strife. This text has been a reminder of their divine heritage, offering both spiritual and national fortitude. It transcends the mere concept of earthly sovereignty, establishing a sacred legacy that defies political and military domination. By linking Ethiopia to the biblical lineage of Solomon, the Kebra Nagast provides a theological foundation for resistance against oppression, instilling pride and dignity in the face of adversity. The message of the Kebra Nagast is one of resilience and empowerment. It reassures the faithful that their spiritual heritage is far more powerful than any temporal force. This belief has fortified generations, encouraging them to uphold values of justice, wisdom, and faith even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. In a world dominated by material power and exploitation, the Kebra Nagast offers a counter-narrative of divine purpose and cosmic justice, elevating the Ethiopian people's understanding of their place in the world. The Kebra Nagast's narrative of the Ark of the Covenant's transfer to Ethiopia is particularly significant. It suggests that Ethiopia, rather than Israel, became the true inheritor of God's covenant. This belief has profound implications for Ethiopian identity and spirituality. It positions Ethiopia as a new Zion, a chosen land with a divine mission. This sense of chosenness and divine purpose has been a powerful source of resilience and pride, especially during periods of foreign domination or internal strife. Furthermore, the Kebra Nagast presents a model of kingship based on wisdom, justice, and divine favor, as exemplified by Solomon. This ideal of righteous leadership has influenced Ethiopian political thought for centuries, providing a standard against which rulers are measured. It suggests that true authority comes not from military might or wealth, but from alignment with divine wisdom and justice. The text also emphasizes the importance of safeguarding sacred knowledge and artifacts. The story of how the Ark of the Covenant was brought to Ethiopia underscores the belief that divine treasures must be protected and preserved. This has inspired a deep reverence for tradition and sacred wisdom within Ethiopian culture, contributing to the preservation of ancient practices and texts that might otherwise have been lost. A threat to power, the subversive nature of divine truth. The Ethiopian Bible has long been recognized as a profound source of spiritual and cultural empowerment, providing those who embrace its teachings with strength, guidance, and a deep sense of divine justice. Yet, for those in positions of power, whether religious or political, this ancient text represents a potent threat. Throughout history, the Ethiopian Bible has been subject to suppression and exclusion, its teachings deemed too dangerous for widespread distribution. The Book of Enoch, challenging corrupt authority. One of the key reasons the Ethiopian Bible has been seen as a threat lies in its inclusion of the Book of Enoch. This text, with its vivid portrayal of the Watchers, angels who rebelled against divine law by engaging with human women, offers a potent allegory for the dangers of unchecked power and authority. The Watchers, once exalted and pure, forsook their divine mission for personal gain, leading to their downfall and the birth of the Nephilim, a race of giants who brought violence and corruption to the world. This narrative is not just a story of celestial rebellion. It serves as a metaphor for the destructive nature of authority when it becomes self-serving. For those in power, the Book of Enoch presents a challenging message. Even the highest figures, whether angels, kings, or leaders, are subject to moral accountability. The fall of the Watchers reveals that no position of power is immune to divine judgment, and this poses a direct challenge to the legitimacy of earthly authority. It suggests that all rulers, no matter how exalted, must adhere to the moral laws of justice and righteousness or face the inevitable consequences of their actions. This idea is particularly dangerous for those who seek to maintain control. The Book of Enoch encourages believers to question authority, to challenge corruption, and to recognize that no leader is beyond reproach. For centuries, religious institutions, especially in the West, found this message too subversive, fearing that it would embolden the oppressed to rise against corrupt systems of power. By excluding the Book of Enoch from the biblical canon, authorities sought to limit its influence, ensuring that its revolutionary ideas would not inspire rebellion among the masses. The Book of Enoch's detailed descriptions of heavenly realms and angelic hierarchies also posed a threat to established religious authorities. These vivid accounts of celestial realities challenged the monopoly that religious institutions claimed on spiritual knowledge. By providing believers with direct access to divine mysteries, the Book of Enoch undermined the role of priests and clergy as exclusive mediators of sacred wisdom. Moreover, the text's apocalyptic visions and prophecies of divine judgment could be interpreted as a call for radical social and political change. In times of oppression or injustice, these prophecies could inspire hope for divine intervention and the overthrow of corrupt systems. This revolutionary potential made the Book of Enoch particularly dangerous in the eyes of those who benefited from the status quo. The Book of Enoch's teachings on the origins of evil and the nature of sin also challenged conventional theological doctrines. Its account of fallen angels introducing sin and corruption to humanity offered a different perspective on the problem of evil, one that implicated celestial beings rather than placing the full burden of guilt on humans. This nuanced view of moral responsibility could be seen as undermining traditional teachings on sin and redemption, threatening the doctrinal authority of established churches. The Kebra Nagast, a challenge to colonial narratives. During the era of European colonialism, the Ethiopian Bible's teachings became even more threatening, especially through its inclusion of the Kebra Nagast. This revered text tells the story of the Queen of Sheba's visit to King Solomon, resulting in the birth of their son Menelik, who would become the first emperor of Ethiopia's Solomonic dynasty. By tracing their lineage back to Solomon and the Ark of the Covenant, the Kebra Nagast provided the Ethiopian people with a divine claim to their land and culture, affirming their status as a chosen nation under God's protection. This narrative was a direct threat to colonial powers, who sought to undermine the cultural and religious identities of the people they subjugated. The Kebra Nagast empowered Ethiopians to resist foreign domination, offering a powerful message of spiritual and national pride. It declared that Ethiopia was not merely a subject of earthly empires but a kingdom with a divine heritage, a nation chosen by God with a sacred mission that could not be erased by foreign powers. For colonial rulers, this sense of spiritual independence was a terrifying prospect, one that undermined their attempts to impose control. The Kebra Nagast's assertion of Ethiopia's divine election challenged the European colonial narrative of cultural and religious superiority. It presented an alternative history in which Africa, not Europe, was the true inheritor of biblical promises and divine favor. This inversion of the colonial worldview threatened the ideological foundations of imperial rule, which often justified itself through claims of bringing civilization and true religion to backward peoples. Furthermore, the Kebra Nagast's account of the Ark of the Covenant being brought to Ethiopia challenged the religious authority of both European Christianity and Judaism. By claiming possession of this most sacred biblical artifact, Ethiopia asserted its central role in salvation history. This claim undermined the spiritual prestige of European nations and churches, which had long positioned themselves as the primary guardians and interpreters of biblical tradition. The text's emphasis on the wisdom and diplomacy of the Queen of Sheba also presented a model of African leadership that contrasted sharply with colonial stereotypes of primitive tribal rule. It depicted African royalty as equal, if not superior, to the greatest biblical king, Solomon himself. This portrayal of African wisdom and statecraft challenged the racist assumptions that underpinned colonial rule. Moreover, the Kebra Nagast's blend of biblical narrative with indigenous African traditions created a unique theological and cultural synthesis. This demonstrated the ability of African cultures to engage with and transform biblical traditions, rather than simply receiving them passively from European missionaries. Such cultural creativity and independence posed a significant threat to the colonial project of cultural domination and assimilation. The Book of Jubilees, challenging colonial timelines. The Book of Jubilees, another unique text found in the Ethiopian Bible, also posed a significant challenge to Western colonialism. Often referred to as the Lesser Genesis, the Book of Jubilees outlines a sacred calendar that governs the cycles of the heavens and the earth, placing history within a divine framework. This text teaches that the events of history are not random or chaotic but follow a carefully orchestrated divine timeline. For colonial powers who sought to impose their own narratives of progress and modernization, this teaching was seen as an affront to their authority. Western colonialism often positioned itself as the bringer of order and progress to backward societies, justifying domination in the name of civilization. But the Book of Jubilees rejected this linear, mechanical view of history, offering instead a vision of time that was cyclical, sacred, and beyond the control of human rulers. This divine timeline, which placed God at the center of history, empowered believers to resist the imposition of colonial rule, reminding them that their lives were part of a larger cosmic story that could not be corrupted or controlled by earthly empires. The Book of Jubilees' alternative chronology challenged the Western academic and religious understanding of biblical history. By presenting a different timeline of events from creation to the Exodus, it undermined the authority of Western biblical scholarship, which had long claimed exclusive expertise in interpreting sacred history. This alternative chronology suggested that African traditions might preserve authentic ancient knowledge that had been lost or suppressed in European Christianity. Moreover, the text's emphasis on the cosmic significance of ritual observances and sacred laws provided a framework for resistance against colonial attempts to suppress indigenous religious practices. It reinforced the idea that maintaining traditional religious observances was not merely a matter of cultural preference, but a participation in divine order. This made it much more difficult for colonial authorities to dismiss or eradicate local religious practices in favor of European Christian norms. The Book of Jubilees also presented a more inclusive view of covenant history, extending God's relationship with humanity back to creation itself, rather than beginning with Abraham or Moses. This universalist perspective challenged the exclusivist claims of both European Christianity and colonial ideologies, suggesting that all peoples, not just Europeans, had a place in God's plan from the beginning of time. For the Ethiopian people, the Book of Jubilees was more than just a religious text, it was a symbol of resistance. It encouraged them to trust in God's ultimate plan for justice, to recognize that the forces of oppression were temporary, and to remain steadfast in their faith, knowing that divine intervention would eventually prevail. For Western powers, this teaching represented a direct challenge to their authority, as it empowered the colonized to resist not only physical domination but also the imposition of foreign ideas and values. Why it's empowering today: ancient wisdom for modern challenges. The Ethiopian Bible continues to serve as a profound source of empowerment, offering wisdom, hope, and guidance to believers navigating the complexities of modern life. Its timeless teachings resonate deeply, especially in a world where chaos, corruption, and injustice seem rampant. What makes the Ethiopian Bible particularly relevant and empowering today is its capacity to inspire resistance, affirm cultural identity, and present a forward-looking vision anchored in divine justice. In an era where trust in political, social, and religious institutions is frequently eroded, the Ethiopian Bible stands as a testament to resistance against corrupt power. It encourages believers to place their faith not in fallible human systems, but in the ultimate authority of God. The message embedded within its pages remains clear: earthly rulers may fail, but divine justice is unwavering. For those who feel disillusioned or oppressed, the Ethiopian Bible offers a pathway to resilience, urging them to stand firm in their faith and resist the forces that seek to undermine justice. One of the clearest illustrations of this theme is the story of the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. The tale of these rebellious angels, who defied divine law and brought ruin upon themselves, serves as a powerful metaphor for the dangers of unchecked authority in the modern context. This story reminds us that no institution, no matter how powerful, is beyond the reach of corruption. The Watcher's fall highlights the inevitable downfall of those who misuse power, offering a timeless lesson in accountability. In today's world, where corporate greed, political corruption, and abuse of power are rampant, the Book of Enoch's message remains profoundly relevant. It empowers individuals to stand up against injustice, reminding them that even the mightiest can fall when they violate moral principles. This teaching encourages whistleblowers, activists, and ordinary citizens to speak truth to power, knowing that their actions align with a higher, divine justice. Moreover, the Book of Enoch's vivid descriptions of cosmic justice provide hope and comfort to those suffering under oppressive systems. It assures believers that their struggles are seen and that ultimate justice will prevail, even if it is not immediately apparent. This perspective can be incredibly empowering for marginalized communities, victims of systemic injustice, or anyone facing seemingly insurmountable odds. The Book of Jubilees presents another empowering vision, challenging the modern emphasis on human control and progress. In a world where progress is often measured by material wealth and power, the sacred, cyclical time described in the Book of Jubilees offers a reassurance that the apparent chaos of the present is part of a divine plan that unfolds according to God's higher order. For those grappling with societal inequalities or exploitation, the Book of Jubilees provides a vision of hope, reminding them that the structures of oppression are temporary and divine justice will ultimately prevail. This perspective is particularly relevant in our fast-paced, technology-driven society, where the pressure to constantly progress and achieve can lead to burnout and a loss of meaning. The Book of Jubilees offers an alternative view, suggesting that true fulfillment comes not from ceaseless forward motion, but from aligning oneself with divine rhythms and purposes. This can be deeply empowering for individuals feeling lost or overwhelmed by the demands of modern life. Furthermore, the Book of Jubilees' emphasis on the sanctity of creation and the importance of maintaining harmony with natural cycles resonates strongly with contemporary environmental concerns. Its teachings can inspire a more sustainable and respectful approach to the natural world, empowering believers to become stewards of creation in an age of ecological crisis. Affirming identity and resistance. The Kebra Nagast further reinforces this message of resistance and empowerment, especially for the Ethiopian people and, by extension, for people of African descent worldwide. This sacred text, which traces Ethiopia's royal lineage to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, offers a narrative that instills pride and affirms a divine connection. During periods of foreign invasion and colonial rule, the Kebra Nagast served as a rallying cry for independence, reminding Ethiopians of their sacred mission and divine protection. Even today, this narrative resonates with those who resist oppression, encouraging them to see themselves as part of a divine plan that transcends earthly power. The Kebra Nagast affirmation of African wisdom, exemplified by the Queen of Sheba, challenges persistent stereotypes and racist ideologies. It presents a powerful counter-narrative to Eurocentric histories, empowering people of African descent to reclaim their heritage and assert their dignity in the face of ongoing discrimination and marginalization. Beyond its message of resistance, the Ethiopian Bible offers a deep sense of identity and cultural pride for those who have been marginalized or oppressed. It affirms their place within a sacred heritage, reminding them that their traditions, faith, and identity are not only valid but divinely ordained. For individuals of African descent, whether in Ethiopia or the diaspora, the Ethiopian Bible offers a spiritual lineage that predates colonialism, slavery, and other forms of cultural oppression. It provides a narrative of continuity and resilience, reaffirming that no external force can erase their cultural and spiritual identity. As people seek to reconnect with their roots and reclaim their heritage, the Ethiopian Bible offers a tangible link to the past, presenting a framework for understanding the present and the future through the lens of a rich spiritual tradition. Perhaps the most compelling reason the Ethiopian Bible remains empowering today is its hopeful vision for the future. Amidst the uncertainties, violence, and inequalities of the modern world, the Bible presents a roadmap for living a life grounded in faith, integrity, and resilience. Its teachings about the end of days, the restoration of God's kingdom, and the triumph of good over evil provide a powerful vision of hope. The prophecy in the book of Enoch, which foresees the judgment of the watchers, reminds believers that evil will not have the final word. In a world often dominated by news of corruption, violence, and injustice, this message offers comfort and motivation. It encourages believers to persist in doing good, even when it seems futile, knowing that ultimate justice is assured. The Book of Jubilees further reinforces this vision, presenting a cosmic timeline that unfolds according to God's plan. This divine order offers reassurance in moments of crisis, encouraging believers to trust in God's timing and resist the despair that often accompanies worldly struggles. The cyclical nature of time, as described in the Book of Jubilees, suggests that the difficulties of the present are part of a larger divine design and that they will eventually give way to justice and redemption. This perspective is particularly empowering in our age of instant gratification and short-term thinking. It encourages believers to take a longer view, to persist in faith and righteous action even when immediate results are not visible. This can be a powerful antidote to the cynicism and hopelessness that often characterize modern life. The Kebra Nagast also offers a forward-looking vision, affirming Ethiopia's place within the divine order and charging its people with upholding the values of justice, wisdom, and faith. This sense of responsibility is not confined to the past. It serves as a guide for the present and future, encouraging believers to carry forward the torch of faith and resilience even in the face of adversity. Moreover, the Ethiopian Bible's holistic worldview, which integrates spiritual realities with earthly existence, offers a comprehensive framework for understanding and navigating the complexities of modern life. In a world often characterized by fragmentation and specialization, this integrated perspective can be deeply empowering, helping believers to find coherence and meaning in their experiences. A source of wisdom for global challenges. The Ethiopian Bible's teachings also offer wisdom for addressing global challenges. Its emphasis on divine justice and the accountability of the powerful speaks to issues of economic inequality and political corruption. The Book of Enoch's warnings about environmental destruction caused by the Watchers and their offspring resonate with current ecological crises. The Kebra Nagast's model of wise and just leadership provides a standard against which to measure contemporary governance. Furthermore, the Ethiopian Bible's preservation of diverse traditions and its syncretic approach to spirituality offer a model for intercultural and interfaith dialogue in our increasingly globalized world. Its ability to integrate various spiritual and cultural streams without losing its core identity demonstrates the possibility of maintaining tradition while engaging with a changing world. In conclusion, the Ethiopian Bible remains a powerful source of empowerment in the modern era. Its teachings provide a message of resistance against corruption and oppression, affirm a deep sense of cultural pride and identity, and offer a hopeful vision for the future grounded in divine justice and cosmic order. The Ethiopian Bible equips believers with the tools they need to navigate an often unjust world, serving as a guiding light that points toward a future where righteousness prevails and divine justice is realized. The power and fear of truth. Conclusion. The Ethiopian Bible stands as a testament to the enduring power of truth, one that has for centuries both uplifted the oppressed and unsettled those who seek control. Its profound teachings on divine justice, cosmic order, and the indomitable spirit of human resilience continue to offer not just guidance but also a deep sense of empowerment to those who engage with its wisdom. For believers, it serves as a beacon of hope, a reminder that righteousness is not only possible but inevitable. The Ethiopian Bible's unique texts, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Kebra Nagast provide a comprehensive worldview that places current struggles within a cosmic context. This perspective offers comfort in times of distress, courage in the face of oppression, and a sense of purpose that transcends immediate circumstances. The Book of Enoch's vivid depiction of celestial rebellion and divine judgment reminds believers that no power, no matter how entrenched or seemingly invincible, is beyond the reach of God's justice. This message has proven particularly potent for those facing systemic injustice or oppression, offering hope that their sufferings are seen and will ultimately be addressed. The Book of Jubilees, with its sacred calendar and cyclical view of time, challenges the linear, progress-oriented narratives that often dominate modern thinking. It offers an alternative way of understanding history and human existence, one that is rooted in divine order rather than human achievement. This perspective can be profoundly liberating for those struggling with the relentless pace and often dehumanizing demands of contemporary life. The Kebra Nagast, with its affirmation of Ethiopia's divine heritage and sacred mission, continues to inspire pride and resilience. Its narrative of African wisdom and divine election challenges persistent racist ideologies and offers a powerful counter-narrative to Eurocentric histories. This text empowers not only Ethiopians but people of African descent worldwide to reclaim their spiritual and cultural heritage. Yet, for those who rely on systems of control, oppression, or unchecked power, this sacred text represents a dangerous threat, a vivid reminder that no empire, ruler, or institution stands beyond the reach of God's judgment. The Ethiopian Bible's teachings challenge the very foundations of unjust power structures, calling for accountability, justice, and the recognition of a higher, divine authority. The Book of Enoch's depiction of the fall of the Watchers serves as a warning to those who would abuse their power, reminding them that even celestial beings are subject to divine judgment when they transgress moral boundaries. This message poses a direct threat to corrupt leaders and institutions, as it encourages believers to question authority and stand firm against injustice. The Book of Jubilee's alternative chronology and sacred view of time challenge dominant narratives of history and progress. For those who seek to control populations through manipulating historical narratives or promoting a certain vision of progress, this text represents a subversive force that cannot be easily contained or co-opted. The Kabran Nagast's assertion of Ethiopia's divine election and its claim to possess the Ark of the Covenant challenge religious and political authorities that have long claimed exclusive access to divine favor. This text undermines colonial and neocolonial narratives that seek to position Western nations or institutions as the primary bearers of spiritual or cultural authority. Ultimately, the power of the Ethiopian Bible lies in its unwavering commitment to truth, and it is this very truth, unflinching and uncompromising, that has made it both feared and revered throughout history. It challenges the foundations of corrupt power and calls forth a vision of justice that transcends the temporal. In a world so often caught in the grip of fear and domination, the Ethiopian Bible offers a counter-narrative, one where truth prevails and justice, rooted in divine order, is the ultimate arbiter of all things. The Ethiopian Bible reminds us that true power does not lie in earthly authority, military might, or economic dominance, but in alignment with divine truth and justice. It offers a vision of human existence that is at once humbling and exalting, humbling in its reminder of human fallibility and the temporality of earthly power, exalting in its affirmation of humanity's capacity to participate in divine purposes. As we navigate the complexities and challenges of the modern world, the Ethiopian Bible stands as a testament to the enduring power of ancient wisdom. Its teachings continue to offer guidance, inspiration, and empowerment to those who engage with its profound truths. Whether as a source of spiritual nourishment, a tool for resistance against oppression, or a framework for understanding our place in the cosmic order, the Ethiopian Bible remains a powerful and relevant text for our times. In embracing the truths preserved in the Ethiopian Bible, we are called to a higher standard of living, one that recognizes our responsibility to seek justice, to stand firm in faith, and to align ourselves with divine purposes. It challenges us to look beyond the immediate concerns of our individual lives and to see ourselves as part of a greater cosmic drama, where every act of faith and righteousness contributes to the ultimate triumph of good over evil. As we face the uncertainties and challenges of our era, the Ethiopian Bible reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. We are part of a long lineage of faithful witnesses, connected to a divine narrative that stretches back to the beginning of time and forward to the ultimate fulfillment of God's purposes. In this light, every act of courage, every stand for justice, and every expression of faith takes on cosmic significance. The Ethiopian Bible, with its unique texts and profound teachings, continues to shine as a beacon of truth and hope in our world. Its message of divine justice, cosmic order, and human dignity remains as relevant and empowering today as it has been for centuries. As we engage with its wisdom, may we find the courage to stand firm in faith, the strength to resist injustice, and the vision to work towards a world where truth and righteousness prevail.